शुरू करें? खाना खाए? Okay. Should I start? Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to the massive open online course on Sociology of Development. As you know, this is a 30-hour course spanning over 12 weeks. I mean, 3 months that we have dwelt upon, and in another couple of weeks or so, we are going to complete the course on Sociology of Development. And as you know that we have started with historical location of the idea of development within quote. Uh, when I say development, I tend to look at the vantage point uh, that is the Second World War. I mean, end of colonialism and rise of nationalism in the Third World, and the desire for development in the Third World, including India. I mean, India is no exception to this, right? When you look at this, uh, the idea of development in the context of uh, uh, colonized nations, including India, I mean, Second World War is the vantage point precisely because national economies of most of the countries were in shatters, international trade touched the lowest ebb, and most of the countries in Latin America, Africa, and Asia were colonized for a pretty long period of time. In fact, India was colonized for almost a couple of centuries, precisely 190 years. And what we generally find that uh, when you look at sociology of development, you will find that uh, when I tend to locate the idea of development in the context of uh, developing societies, developing economies, including India, I tend to look at the process of decolonization and rise of nationalism and the desire for development. And then we have discussed the indicators of development from the world of economics, from the world of politics, from the world of sociology, and so on. For example, Human Development Index, for example, mobilization, participation, so not simply per capita income or national income. Also. And then we have discussed the idea of evolution, the idea of progress, uh, uh, within classical sociological framework, and the first sociological account of development was the modernization theory, which postulates that the less developed economies will make progress provided they follow the pattern of or the economic and social pattern of Western capitalism. I mean, the economy provided they follow the economic and social systems of the already developed countries. That's how the modernization theory it looked at countries as homogeneous ones, precisely because the proponents of modernization theory were guided by an ethnocentric worldview. Ethnocentrism was coined, the term ethnocentrism was coined by um, William Graham Sumner in 1906 in his Folkways to describe the prejudicial attitudes between in groups and out groups in which um, um, our attitudes, our customs, our behavior patterns are uncritically and unquestionably treated as superior to their cultural, social, political, economic arrangements. Okay, that's how ethnocentrism is based on racism of the biological school of the evolutionary theory. Okay, the then we have discussed the critics of modernization theory. Okay, how the modernization theory, the way it was postulated, the way it was propagated by the capitalist world, the way it was propagated by the colonizers. Okay, not simply in the European continent but also in as a part of the expansion of American economic, political, and military hegemony. Okay, um, and the modernization theory uh, examines the state as an as an isolated category. It treats states of all countries as homogeneous entities. It fails to examine the modernization theory. In essence, it fails to examine um, the nitty-gritty of or the uh, uh, or the quintessential parts of uh, the states in different societies. They treat societies as homogeneous ones. In fact, all societies are heterogeneous, right? The American society is different from Indian society. Within Indian society, you will find that uh, uh, the society in Maharashtra may be different from the society in Andaman and Nicobar. That's why development trajectory must be different from Maharashtra to the Andaman and Nicobar. Okay, that's why development cannot be treated mm, as a homogeneous entity. Then the first critique, the initial critique of the modernization theory, emanated in the uh, context of the Latin American debates on underdevelopment. The Latin American debates on underdevelopment uh, emerged as a convergence of two intellectual trajectories, namely neo-Marxism on the one hand and the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America on the other. Okay, this is very important. Popularly known as ECLA tradition. The neo-Marxism on the one hand and the ECLA tradition on the other. Then we have discussed the differences between Marxism and neo-Marxism in terms of four fundamental parameters, namely imperialism and nationalism, classes, revolution and ethics, ecology, and so on. And then we have discussed through different case studies from Mexico, from Chile, uh, uh, from Brazil, from Peru, how uh, the Latin American debates on underdevelopment formed a critique of the modernization theory, namely the dependency theory. Okay, through the works of Andre Gunder Frank, Stephen Hagen, and others, Sankel, Martini, and so on. Okay, and then we have discussed how dependency theory um, uh, was also conceptualized in the context of India through, that core periphery relationship um, through the works of Dadabhai Naroji, through the works of M.N. Roy, and so on. And then we have discussed the critics of dependency theory. If modernization theory represented the capitalist world, then the dependency theory represented the socialist world. And that led to the Cold War situation across the continents the capitalist world was led by um, the United States of America, and the socialist world was led by the erstwhile Soviet Union, USSR. And what we generally find here is that the Cold War, uh, perhaps it closed the doors for any other development trajectory, and uh, the world was uh, caught in between two extremes of capitalism and socialism. Perhaps there was nothing in between. But with the end of, or with the dismantling of socialism in the erstwhile USSR in the 1980s, late 1980s and early 1990s, opened up the new vistas of development trajectories, that there must be some alternatives to Western capitalist model of development, and as our cultures vary, or as our political setups vary, as our economic conditions vary, that's why our development trajectories also must vary, right? Because development cannot be treated in isolation. Hmm? Development is contingent upon several other factors. Okay, uh, that's why when I say development cannot be treated in isolation, development must be looked at from the vantage point of our economy, from the vantage point of our social formation, culture, from our political settings, and so on. You will find that uh, essentially the kind of development trajectory that the European continent or the United States of America they follow, it must be different in the context of developing countries. And again, developing countries, quote unquote, is not a homogeneous entity. The kind of development planning which is required for India may be different in Sri Lanka, may be different from Bangladesh, may be different from China. Okay, that's why if we should not treat development planning, development trajectory as a homogeneous entity. And in this sense, what we have been doing, that we have been trying to look at uh, different trajectories of development which are very much related to our own social, political, economic, and cultural setups. Okay, then we have discussed Small is Beautiful by E.F. Schumacher, and Schumacher tried to bank on Leopold Kohr as well as Mahatma Gandhi to uh, make his argument that how only industrialization, only large scale production, only assembly line production uh, may not result in the development of underdeveloped countries, may not yield development in the colonized nations. That's why Gandhi propagated the idea of Khadi industry. That's why he said Khadi is the symbol of Indian humanity. If India copies England, it is my firm conviction that she will be ruined. That's what Gandhi emphatically mentioned in Hind Swaraj. Okay. Leopold Kohr, he coined the term small is beautiful. Okay, and E.F. Schumacher, he quoted, Leopold Kohr was his teacher, and he propagated the idea of small is beautiful, the problem of production, and so on. Okay, if you have production, but if it is not accessible, if it is not equitably distributed, then there is no meaning of such assembly line production. Whether you are going to have mass production or you are going to have production for the masses. Okay, if masses are left out in the process of production, then there is no meaning of such production. Okay, that's why there must be a transition from mass production to production by the masses. Okay, that's a more culture industry, and neo-Marxists they tend to propagate. And then we have discussed what a history of needs. We have discussed deschooling. Ivan Illich's alternatives to Western capitalist models of development and so on. And then in the 21st century, we ended with we are going to end with this with we are going to end this course with Franz J. Surman's reflections on paradigms lost, paradigms regained, development studies in the 21st century. What are the paradigms? Maybe the state, which is considered the most important political institution having, what are the elements of a state? There are at least 4 elements of a state in conventional political science, that population, territory, government, and sovereignty. But now they are replaced by uh, 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 the ruling elites, dominant political parties, um, the bureaucracy, and the military. Okay, that's what Hamza Alawi Theodor Sanin tried to reflect. And sorry, and if you look at these scenarios, then you will find that the state has been replaced by maybe the way people thought that no, the development paradigm suggested that no, state will be uh, the caricature of development in underdeveloped countries. Maybe the state uh, maybe the state will not be able to do it alone. Maybe we need more and more interventions from the civil society. Okay, for a long time, the uh, for a long time the socialist world, they tried to ignore the significance of the civil society. From the thesis on far back, they used to quote Marx that uh, the standpoint of the old materialism is civil society. Hegelian materialism is civil society, and whereas the standpoint of the new materialism is human society or socialized humanity. Okay, that's why but Antonio Gramsci, in his prison notebooks, he tried to historically situate the significance of civil society, the role of organic intellectuals in party building, and so on. That's extremely important. And when you look at these scenarios, you will find that Franz J. Surman, he tries to uh, uh, suggest that how the state, the concept, the notion of the state uh, is getting obliterated in the wake of, or in the context of the emergence of civil society. Okay, and these paradigms are getting challenged. The older paradigms are getting challenged. The newer ones are knocking on the door, uh, and they want to replace the old paradigms. And these competing paradigms in Kuhnian sense, Thomas Kuhn's The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, in Kuhnian sense, it is becoming more important that these paradigms, the old as well as the new ones, are going to compete with each other, and uh, which are going to have significant implications um, on our economy, culture, and public policy making, decision making bodies, education policy, science policy, population policy, a policy to reduce poverty, malnutrition, unemployment, and so on. What kind of policies we want? Perhaps we need some kind of hybrid policies where it cannot be left to only political class. Rather, we need classes from all walks of life, where there will be more and more uh, inclusive approach to public policy framing, so that our health, education, social security measures, and so on will be improved to a substantial extent, and so on. Okay, this is how we are going to end the course, and I hope um, all of you are listening to the lectures and will continue to listen to the lectures, and you will appear in the test. And I'm sure all of you are very bright students, bright learners. Uh, uh, Once, I mean, you will do perform well in the examination. I wish you all the best, and I hope and please take care of your health in these difficult times. Uh, uh, I wish you all the best. Uh, if there is any question, you can raise. Yeah. Okay. If there is no question, then um, we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Uh, Thanks a lot. Bye.